Good evening, sir. This is the first DevJam podcast of 2022. We made a pause in January. I'm more than glad to have you tonight with us. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Patrick van der Born. I'm an independent consultant in the Netherlands and currently on an assignment with you, Neo, at the Rabobank, where we're doing some DevOps stuff. Most people know me from, I realize this is about development, and that's the fun part of this podcast since I'm coming from the infrastructure clicking
Well,
guys.
let's say not necessarily. We just borrowed the DevJam umbrella of the brand. Well, it's very confusing actually. If you would search for, I guess if you would search on YouTube for our podcast, and if you see the name, it's a DevJam indeed.
Cool. So the people know me, I'm very active in the community, mostly for Citrix and Citrix. This year I'm a newbie as a Citrix CTP. That's some like the Microsoft Mvp, but then from a Citrix side, mainly focused on Citrix on Azure. So Azure DevOps, and I like to do everything as code because I'm a lazy IT guy and I never want to do things twice. Then you can automate it. So that's basically me.
When did you start your career?
I'm starting back in, I like 2000, 2001. So for 20 years already.
That's really a long time ago.
Yeah, but that's the professional career. And I think I was like 5 years old when my dad got his first computer with MS-DOS.
I was 7, very close by, but you're better.
Yeah. Maybe it was 7, but like that. And it was very interesting when I know how to break it. And then my uncle came over to fix it, and we just watched it how he fixed the computer. So I could break and fix it from the software side. That's where my career started, but from a professional career about 2001 or something like that.
That's awesome. And where do you live at the moment?
I'm living in Amersfoort. It's the center of the Netherlands. So yeah, basically in the center of the Netherlands.
That's really cool. Do you live alone or with a family?
No, I've got a wife and 2 kids, one of 2 years old and one of 5 years old. So basically, besides all the professions, between 5 and 7-ish, it's no cell phone time, and then I have to.
That's very impressive. That's how it should be, actually.
Yeah. Then you have to play this type of card games with a 5-year-old, and it's really cool.
Actually, it feels good when you sometimes zoom out from technical stuff and just go do something that you did as a kid. I mean, now you're living that with your kids again, so that's perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
And you mentioned your Citrix MVP. For how many years already in a row are you the MVP?
No, this is CTP. This is my first year, so I'm really a newbie in this program. And basically, in that program, I'm really focused on APIs, architecture development, and virtual apps and desktops. So I'm also very interested in GPUs, not only for the graphical part, because that's also interesting, but you see a lot of AI nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an AI specialist, but hey, what we can do with AI, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's actually insane. We still didn't have anyone who was, let's say, AI specialist in the podcast, but it's a really good and fresh idea to bring also someone. But can you tell us something about your experience with these GPUs? I guess today very hot on market is like NVIDIA and some other brands, right? And because you're a specialist, I guess you have some experience with it.
Yeah. Basically, I'm a member of a community initiative called TeamRGE, called Remote Graphic Experts. That's where it all started, like offloading heavy 3D or 2D workloads in, for example, a Citrix environment in a central place. So basically, I did some project where I really rendered some Airbus A380 kitchens. That's a big
Wow.
process. That's really
Wow.
cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of people think like with a GPU, just place a GPU in a system or buy one and then you're good to go. But you can do a lot with it. The most people know it from the graphics, the GeForce one. They're also very wanted for the crypto mining, like we did
Yeah.
nowadays. But also from the AI perspective or some heavy calculations with double precision, for example, strength calculations for concrete. Yeah, that's way faster on a GPU than on a CPU, for example.
Yeah, as I understand, I'm also not even close to the expert of the GPUs, but they have some kind of special chips inside that allow you to do that fast rendering, right?
Yeah. There are multiple chips. One is just a GPU, which is a parallel processing part. That's where the graphic happens. But a lot of functions are offloaded. For example, if you do Citrix or like we are doing now, streaming, there is an encoder on your GPU to do it real time. If you have to do this on the CPU, nowadays with the Blu-ray compression, it's possible. But if you go to the that's H.264, that's the codec. But nowadays you also got the H.265, which actually has the same, the graphics quality, but the half of the bandwidth. And you could even not do it with 8 CPUs real time to encode the stream to YouTube, for example. So there are a lot of chips
it's
on
very
the
deep.
board. Yeah, there are lots of encoders, decoders, double precision points to do some specific tasks, which only a GPU can do.
Why would you use double precision cores?
For example, for concrete strength
You mentioned
calculations.
that, but why? Why? What is the reason?
So, for example, if you want to do a big building, like for example in the US, then you need to calculate the strength, and those are very.
You want to make sure that it's correct. That's basically the deal. Okay.
So if you're developing on the 15th floor, that you're not down within 5 seconds. So then the concrete can't hold the strength. So they can calculate with double precision to ensure that you have the right strength of concrete and all the kind of stuff you need.
Do they use this also to build vehicles? Because I think transport is really essential thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I also seen lots of cool things when building vehicles with GPUs. One thing just finished a project where they just built convoy exceptional trucks. So they engineer it, and that's a really different engineering we're doing. Like they are engineering with steel, so that's 1 centimeter thick steel, and they basically can design that on their computer, on the GPU. They could even bend it, so they know the strength about the bending of the steel, and they basically just use a laser to cut out their designs from a steel plate, and then bring it to a CAM machine where they just bend the 1 centimeter thick iron with maybe 380 tons of pressure.
Wow.
And that's really a different type of engineering with a computer and a GPU that we're doing. And that's basically gives you a convoy exceptional truck on the road with, for example, 10 wheels with 30 meters long.
Wow.
It's really cool.
How do you find all this knowledge, all these resources? Like, for people that are listening to us, what would you recommend if someone is interested?
I just read a lot about GPUs. This graphical stuff are just rolling. This is a really niche market. Not a lot of companies are doing it. And I did some project at some companies, and I really understand the development part, what they're doing, and also the technical part, what they need to do as an engineer. Just talk to people and just come to the community, because within the Citrix community, there are a lot of people doing this stuff. And if you like that, you just come in.
How would you explain like Citrix in a few sentences to the people that are not aware of it?
The most people think like, okay, Citrix. So the most people know that from their remoting protocol. So basically they started the first as a company who developed the multi-session on OS2 Warp back in the days. And even on Windows NT, they got multi-session upfront. So they know about a remoting protocol. So you basically host your Windows and nowadays also your Linux applications on a remote box, and only the display, the mouse clicks, and the keyboard strokes are sent over the wire. That's the product we know for years, and Microsoft calls this remote desktop services. We could also do some apps, but Citrix does a lot more. For example, they're also having big projects, and maybe it's more nowadays with the Citrix ADC, formerly known as NetScaler. And I think a lot of those NetScalers are used by big companies as
For sure.
A layer 6 or layer 7 network device. So that's really cool.
For sure. And how competitive is the Citrix? For example, you have also VMware, Nutanix. Why would people opt for Citrix now, for example, and not for some other vendor?
Basically, every vendor has its pros and cons nowadays. So, for example, if you compare Citrix versus Azure Virtual Desktop, for example, from Microsoft, then Azure Virtual Desktop has a login, so you can only host your workloads on Azure.
Mm-hmm.
And Citrix is really good in doing a hybrid solution. So basically gives you the opportunity.
Best from both worlds, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And the most customers have on-premises Citrix environments, and they have to move to the cloud. And like we're doing on our project, it's a really big company, and they cannot do a big bang. So basically, they can be a bridge between on-premises and the cloud, start moving all the workloads to the cloud.
It is interesting how cloud providers and technology providers found this good way to collaborate, so they can both leverage, the customer in terms of monetizing, right? It's very interesting. And how do you see this era? Like, what would be the next cutting edge product of the Citrix?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That basically started with micro apps. Like they want to make work easy, and you can imagine, like, if you want to have a PTO on your work, maybe you have to log into Workday or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then click 5 times in the menu, fill in 3 forms, press submit, and have to log off. But then you have to put in your expensive, launch another system, log in there again. So that's a lot of time logging on and off 2 different systems. So basically what they've created is they call it micro apps. Basically what you do, you will hook into the APIs of different systems, and you just create a known form within the Citrix workspace, where you can, for example, submit your expenses or request your PTO without actually logging into the system. So
that's amazing.
So that will save the end user time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, really.
What's actually needed to become the Citrix MVP? Like, what you did all collectively to because, as I understand, that's not like certification. It's not something that you can just go take the exam and get it. You need to be like proven to the community, and that's a prize, right, from the vendor.
Yeah. I started blogging until my first son was born, and I had the project with the house. But I never stopped sharing my knowledge with lots of sessions and events. I know some guys from the CTP program, and also had some feedback, especially to the remoting protocol for Citrix. It's called HDX. It stands for High Definition User Experience. Due to my the knowledge I have of those 3D workloads, and gave them a lot of feedback for these type of workloads. So then I just filled in the form, and first I was CTA. That's a little bit one step lower than CTP, so that's sort of pre-program. Also really cool program to be in. And yeah, after 3 years being a CTA, this Citrix Technology Advocate, I was promoted to Citrix Technology Professional.
Okay,
And
CTP. I need to start saying MVP because that's from the Microsoft world. I'm sorry.
exactly, exactly.
Great. No, it's very cool. And how do you maintain the status? What do you need to do to? What's the difference between the CTA and CTP?
Yeah, the CTA, yeah, you have access to some resources within Citrix, but when I became a CTP, I have lots more meetings with product management and development, and also a lot of calls and also a lot of opportunity to give feedback.
That's
Also
cool.
to the, sometimes it's a bug, or sometimes I have a cool idea and just post it there, and then somebody's interested and ask me like, okay. Uh, uh, um, yeah, can you explain me more? Maybe that's interesting for Citrix. I also have raised a CVE this year, so security bug.
Wow.
also very yeah, it was cool that process.
I hope it was nothing something related to Log4j.
No, it was not log4j. More or less like something. It was with a log, but not log4j. So basically, the API keys were exposed somewhere in a
Oh
log.
wow. Okay. And does the Citrix pay you the price if you find the bounty, the bug, like security bug?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never realized that because I'm more like the good guy in security. I know this bug, and then the whole process started. So you need to shut your mouth until you know there's a fix. Yeah, really nice to see. But
Yeah.
basically,
Interesting.
yeah. Then you to yeah to stay a CTP, you have to have contributions, and all the other CTPs have to vote, including
Hmm.
some Citrix employees, if I'm allowed in the program next year.
That's cool. That's really cool. It's I think it's a similar process for all technology vendors. It's not that you're accepted just by one person, but actually by whole community that's there already.
Yeah. And the main focus I had for this year was for the Citrix Cloud. That's a software as a service
Offering, yeah.
platform from offering from Citrix, and basically they host a lot of their products from there. As you know, I'm the automation guy. I don't like to click in GUIs. So basically, I have a lot of feedback about that to automate the whole Citrix Cloud
That's
deployment.
really good. That's really cool. And do they already support some infrastructure as code providers like Terraform, or they still have just APIs?
They still just have APIs, and I think we're more from an infrastructure world. So lots of Citrix administrators over the world are used to click everything 1,000 times.
Yeah,
With all respect, because from a test build deploy solution, that's also a good approach we've done for years. But the bridge to go to everything as code when doing APIs is a bridge too far. Because if sometimes I'm now learning Citrix administrators to go more into the PowerShell and the Terraform, like the declarative approach style. But if I ask them to do APIs and they just look at me if they see water burning, like, okay, what is an API?
yeah, absolutely.
And then I was talking like, okay, maybe you start with Postman, creating your API queries. Let's see what's coming back, or the Swagger, and then I'm completely lost. Of they are completely lost. So um, yeah, I think it should be better for the Citrix Cloud if they also have a Terraform provider, for example, because that's if you look at the Azure platform, and they have the Azure Virtual Desktop. You can completely manage that, for example, with ARM templates.
Yeah,
And nowadays with Bicep, and they also have a Terraform provider plugin. And if you look at the amount of lines you need to
yeah,
from the
because
Citrix,
you would need to like orchestrate whole logic yourself instead of just using provider that is gonna do that for you. And if
yeah,
some,
even
yeah, If something
even
changes tomorrow, then you're in a problem.
even the happy flow is long. So let's say if you need to make the flow also with a lot of error handling, and it will take you a big time to do all the API calls, then it comes back, translate it, and then do it again, or another API endpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've done this stuff before with APIs, but if you have to transfer a lot of data between APIs, it will become a big PowerShell script, for example, or whatever
Yeah,
language you
yeah.
want to use for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an easy task. And what is their feedback on this? Are they gonna come back with some solution in reasonable time? Because I think now on the market, uh, not having the option to orchestrate something through the code is really a big thing already. Like really big thing.
Yeah, I think too. They just released only for one service a tool for their own. It's called the Citrix Automated Configuration Tool. So they designed something from themselves, but it's only hooked to one piece of the Citrix Cloud, and I'm liking it more for the whole Citrix Cloud, so I can manage everything
Yeah,
via desired state configuration style. Yeah, I've told them like, okay, maybe this is a bridge too far using only API calls, and maybe it's better to hook in if you have the API calls to create a Terraform provider, for example. Citrix already has a Terraform provider created for their NetScaler product, the ADC. So you can configure the NetScaler ADC with desired state configuration. But that would also be awesome from my perspective. This is my opinion. If you can use that for Citrix Cloud, and especially the power of Terraform, that's why I like the HashiCorp products a lot, is that from an administrative perspective, I only have to get used to one type of language, the HashiCorp language 2, to
yeah,
deploy all my resources, even on Azure, Google, AWS, maybe Citrix Cloud, on-premises vSphere. So yeah, I do not have to learn my administrators like Bicep, VMware PowerShell, then the Citrix Cloud API calls or the Citrix Cloud Automated Configuration Tool. And if
yeah.
they have to different approaches for all platforms, yeah, they will get crazy if they need to merge all the platforms together.
Yeah, I think HashiCorp did amazing job with this, and that's why the Terraform is so hot on the market as a tool.
For sure.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? Also, like these tools are so useful and let's say hot on the market, but they become easier and easier and easier to learn because we are every day prospering to the higher level of orchestration. What do you think? Like now, basically, when kids go to school, they're not gonna learn C objective anymore. They're gonna learn Terraform.
Yeah.
Should we pay at, I mean, in a few years, what's gonna happen with these traditional admins when these kids are here, you know?
Yeah, so sometimes from what I always talk is like we already have a big transition by Microsoft moving from on-premises Exchange, for example, for email to
Yeah,
the Microsoft Online or Google G Suite. So I always tell to my customers like, okay, don't become the Exchange admin because we did a lot of movement of the Exchange service to the cloud, and I think there are not a lot of on-premises Exchange service anymore. So you don't have to manage them yourselves. From the infrastructure perspective, I'm mostly on the cutting edge technology, so I like this being on the next page. But I see a lot of people struggling, moving towards the as code style. Lots of people like it. Also, some people you didn't expect it. But I think it will take some years until this is common practice for in the whole industry from the infrastructure side.
yeah,
On
yeah,
the
definitely.
on the other hand, and I like that is that lately I had a chat and that guy told to me like, okay, those guys who coming from school, yeah, they don't have the knowledge we are, and he's the clicking one and but I am telling like, okay, maybe that's because they learn different stuff. They're not growing up with the big cables and
It's a question, do they need that knowledge also at the moment?
yeah. And so, sometimes when someone comes from school and, for example, that's really cool. I don't know if you know the NVIDIA Jetson Nano. That's basically a Raspberry Pi, but then with an NVIDIA GPU on it, and you can have a robot with it. It's a kit, and you can do really cool stuff. So I've seen with one company in the Netherlands, they gave all their employees that kit. It can't do anything until you put some code in it. And some cool guys who coming from school, they basically get it so it automatically follows you in the living room. So that's really cool. And I
Wow.
think if
Wow.
that's really cool. And I think that's also really cool. That's more for my kids. Is I've seen some Lego with the controller on it, and where you can program the controller so it detects or fires an arrow or a dart or something like that.
Wow, that's amazing. You know how easier it's gonna be for these kids to grasp technology because I mean we had to survive starting from cell phones that didn't even have any graphics. The screen was green and
Yeah.
letters were gray. And today we are writing code for DevOps, and they're just gonna learn one thing. So I'm personally I'm not sure what's better to see the whole evolution or to be bothered, but you don't have a choice. So at the
No,
end,
no,
yeah, you need to live
no.
your life at the
And
moment.
sometimes it's also good to get new technology in if you don't have the tunnel vision about the things you know, because there's more to learn in the process you don't know. And especially if you don't look back and have that knowledge, you can, I think, easier think out of the box than having a lot of things in you as a baggage, which
Yeah, indeed.
somehow holding you up or um,
I was never liking to learn shit tons of theory that I need to know on top of my mind. That's that's maybe why people find themselves doing IT because it's more required for you to have a logic and to be able to respond to the requirements at the moment when it's needed by finding the solution, not maybe from your mind, but alternatively from the internet. And that's what people also, when they just start, it's very confusing with them. I remember myself going to school for IT. It was like I was 18 when I said, okay, I want to try something with computers. And then we were learning about computer networks, and you have shitloads of theory. And I was like, man, I'm never gonna learn this. It's like, but that's not the essence at the end. It's about problem solving.
yeah.
So I can understand why modern DevOps has the problem to realize the stuff because before you go on an interview and you know some stuff from GUI about Active Directory or some other service, but now
Exactly.
now it's about the logic.
Yeah, yeah. What you see also changing is like VMware was one of the game changers in the beginning, going from bare metal to virtual machines.
Hmm.
Basically, they did it by IBM, I guess, on the AS400 platform, but for the computering, so they virtualized everything. And I know when I started in technology, I was the infrastructure guy, and if I need to cooperate with the developers department, they ask me to provision some servers.
Yeah,
Yeah, I started to use PowerShell because I hate clicking in the VMware GUI. They had VMware CLI, so that was way faster. But still, you need to clone, set up the physical networking part and everything. And nowadays, if you look at the data center and cloud, everything is software defined.
yeah,
Like I do not have that big storage controller which an IT infra admin needs to manage. It's just everything in a box. If you look at Nutanix, it's just a host of clusters and everything is software defined. And the same is in Azure. So you don't have to be that guy who knows everything about cables and disks. So
yeah,
basically,
indeed.
the developer can just spin up everything software defined by code with and then skipping the infrastructure guy.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. The learning curve is becoming more minimal how we prosper because everything is so abstract with the cloud. As you said,
Yeah,
you're not the guy anymore who needs to know everything. It's a very good
exactly.
it's a very good point. that brings also separation of duties, right? I was,
Separation of
yeah,
duties?
well, in a way that like now you're not employed as universal guy who needs to know everything. Like,
No, no.
I know traditional administrators, they also can fix your electricity at home,
Yeah, yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, but I can still do or electricity at
Yeah.
home, no
I,
problem.
yeah, of course. I mean, you should. You have kids and wives, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely. I was wondering, besides the Citrix, what is your favorite product?
What's my favorite product? Wow, that's a good question because yeah, I think it's the HashiCorp products, the Terraform, just to deploy resources, and
Hmm.
Packer to build images. Um, but I also get really in love with Ansible. So basically the desired state stuff because it makes you a little bit lazy, not thinking about the flows.
Yeah,
You
indeed.
but it's also really handy because most of the times it just works out of the box. I want that, and bam, it's there. And the it's impressive in the speed of how you can deploy things. Um, and I like Azure DevOps at this moment a lot. Yeah, because that's my first
Yeah, very.
DevOps tool
It's very
used.
extensive product indeed.
Exactly, exactly.
What do you do besides IT? Because you said you live with your kids. Like, how do you entertain yourself next to the job to
Next
stay
to the job,
mentally healthy? You know.
yeah, 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 I do a lot of sports. And basically, I do Olympic weightlifting and
Wow, nice.
CrossFit. So to yeah, that I need that to get some of my energy back. It sounds a little bit strange. Sometimes my mind is because I'm very um, enthusiastic about all the technologies and the learning curve for me the last years is like this. And sometimes you just need to
Slow
to
down a
get
little bit.
yeah, yeah, just to get rid of all those energies and get your mind low. And then when you're doing heavy weights or heavy cardio, then yeah, then you get somehow relaxed after it. That works for me. Um, yeah, and for the rest, I do a lot with my kids. So just go to the swimming pool, learn them swim, uh, playing card games for 4-year-old,
Yeah,
5-year-old
now
boys.
with this corona, it's not really helpful in terms of activities.
No,
It's
no.
yeah, it's very difficult, but we also see that a lot of stuff is now much more mobile. Um, Web developed so much because we need to do stuff from home. It became a new normal for people.
Yeah, yeah. Especially in my area, like Citrix, it's from the remoting protocol, and we always stated for years, like, okay, you see the revolution. We came into offices, we work at offices, and now I think work is not the office is not the place where work needs to be all the time. And I think Corona helped us a hand by that and showed to every company and maybe everyone that we're in that area, that our technology is at that level that we can work from home and still be proactive.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that we have to shut down all offices because I still feel the need to somehow go to the office. Like today, Neo, when I met you there.
indeed.
Sometimes it's just yeah, sometimes it's just cool to see somebody face to face and being out of your home. But yeah, the technology is really good and it made a really boost last time. Everything is web. I see also a lot being extracted via Citrix, for example. Lots of companies, even if they have their fat clients designer desktops on premises, so they can also use Citrix to work from home, just using a Raspberry Pi to connect to your development desktop, for example.
Well, yeah,
Um,
that's extremely useful.
yeah, yeah. So I think from technology perspective, one thing Corona has a positive point because yeah, about all the people who getting very ill, and that's worse than the positive things. But one positive thing about Corona is that I think the vision also from directors and companies that that's just a good work-life balance.
Yeah, makes
And
sense, actually. To an extent, it feels good that you can work from home and go to the office whenever you wish, because especially now at home, your family, kids, everyone needs some kind of special care.
yeah,
It's good that we are flexible as people, parents, sons, however, to have the choice of where you want to work from. And I hope in the future that more industries, not only IT, that we are going to find a solution with the technology for other industries so that people have flexibility and also better life. Because if you can work remotely, that means you don't need to stay at home all the time. Maybe you can travel somewhere.
exactly. Or do other things, like for example, next Thursday, due to Corona, my hair is like this. But now I can just go to the barber shop about 9 o'clock, and then half an hour there, and just doing a meeting on the while walking to
Yeah,
home,
exactly. Exactly.
and
We're
that's a really cool
we are not
work-life
so
balance.
we are not so strict anymore in our minds where you need to be to do your work. Especially, I mean, if you just need to talk, you can think while doing anything, right? You're even doing that while sleeping, so it doesn't
Yeah,
really matter.
yeah, and
I
I
s-
think it's better for your productivity at work, and also
ah
for your private life, if you have the right balance. Because if you're happy at work and life, then both are fine. Like, you're smiling when you're not at work, you're not stressed, and you're productive and relaxed at work. So, hey, win-win.
yeah, it's a big win-win. I really like it. I started thinking to ask people who come to the podcast to tell something interesting about them that they didn't share yet. So, do you have such a thing to share on this podcast?
How do you mean, like that?
Well, something from your life that would be interesting for people to share, something very special. Do you have a thing about yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. No, not that much. I don't like cheese, so that's really strange for a Dutch guy. I
Oh,
like
wow.
everything.
Okay, now I'm shocked. It's good. It's
So I
you
don't
bought
eat.
me. You bought me.
I don't eat cheese. Yeah, and besides, I also like to do a lot with wood. So making things like um, yeah, I just 2 weeks ago at a friend's house, I made a chapel on his house, like 10 meters wide and 2.5 meters high.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
But that sometimes helped me. I did it with other friends, so maybe with three or
Interesting.
four. But working with your hands sometimes also, yeah, you're also being busy with your mind. So if you're doing something not with your mind, yeah, you need to think about how long it is and how you will make it. But when you're
Yeah,
just busy with
I was
so,
reading a book that explains why people who are working with computers are so stressed. Because back in the days, if you're a lumberjack, you're the whole day crashing the wood, right?
yeah,
But now you're sitting the whole day stuck and like, okay, what's happening here? Oh, there is a bug. Okay, let's dig into errors. It's really putting you out of that balance. So it's always really good to have some extra physical activities to help you.
yeah, yeah.
Indeed.
And especially now in Corona time, if I know I do not have to share anything, and sometimes you have that listen or just chat meetings, because you have a lot of meetings from home. I just put on my headset and my mobile phone and just start walking while doing the meeting. Some people ask me like, "Whoa, man, you're walking a lot." Yeah, because for some reason, if you sit down all day, then my body feels to be a very bit stiff, and then I think
Same,
it's good.
same,
Yeah, I think it's good to do a lot of walking.
same. And I also think the same. I also wonder for myself, like, these extra hours that I do sometimes podcast or teach a course. It's good for your brain, it's good for your pocket, it's good for your career, but it's a big trade-off for your body.
Yeah,
And then I force myself, okay, if I did extra hours on the chair, I need to do extra hours uh,
exactly.
that are not on the chair. Patrick, it was amazing talking to you, man. Really, really nice and good insights from the Citrix world. I wanna thank you for being a guest at the DevJam. We killed already good 45 minutes.
Cool.
If you have something else to share with us, please do. Otherwise, we're gonna close the session.
Yeah, no, not for this. Yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, this is nice about podcasts is that you have something in mind up front to talk about all the way, like a session. But due to this interaction, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's very different. That's why I like doing podcasts with people from tech because, you know, we are used to spend so much time spending on preparation for the conference, doing some presentation, etc. I just like using the intelligence, as we said, like a logic ad hoc talking to people, and I think it's more fun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Thanks a lot once again, and thanks for everyone that are watching us. This was Patrick from, well, my colleague. We work together for Rabobank as a client, but as you know, he's independent consultant. You didn't mention your company name, so the people can reach out later on.
Yeah. My company name is Van den Born IT Consultancy, based in the Netherlands. So basically my last name with consultancy. And if you want to contact me, just send me an email, patrick@vandenborn.it.
I'm jealous on your last name, man. Mine is too short for the nice company name. All right. Thanks again. We're going to stay in touch. I really appreciate that you joined us tonight. All the best.